I said no to babysitting my stepsister's kids, and now my dad's threatening to cut me off. Can you imagine being told by your own father that he'd cut you out of his life, simply because you refused to babysit? That's exactly what happened to me, and it wasn't just about the kids. It ripped open a decades-long secret that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. Hey everyone, I'm Sophia, I'm 28, and lately my family life has been a mess, to put it mildly. My parents split when I was 10, and it was rough. My mom moved away, and for years it was just me and my dad. We were incredibly close, or so I thought. I assumed we shared everything, but as I got older, I started realizing there were huge parts of his life he'd been hiding from me. When I was 15, my dad introduced me to Linda. Turns out, they'd been secretly dating for a while. I was hurt, feeling like I was the last to know, but I tried to be supportive. A few months later, they got married, and Linda moved in with her daughter, Emma, who was 25 at the time. Overnight, I went from being an only child to having a stepsister. The transition was tough. Emma was outgoing, bubbly. I was more quiet and reserved. We were polite, but we never truly connected. Never became those close sisters you see in movies. At 18, college was my escape. I was honestly relieved to get some space from my new family. I buried myself in my studies, made new friends, and after graduating, I found a job in the same city and decided to stay. My visits with Dad and Linda became mostly holiday affairs. Emma and I barely spoke beyond birthday texts or awkward family dinners when I was in town. We were practically strangers. Fast forward to now. Emma recently moved to my city with her husband, Jake, and their two adorable but rambunctious kids, Liam, who's 4, and Ava, who's 2. Jake got a new job at a tech startup, and Emma's a stay-at-home mom. When they first arrived, my dad called, asking me to help them settle in. I wasn't thrilled, but I agreed. I showed them around, helped them pick a neighborhood, even pitched in with some of the heavy lifting during their move. I thought that would be it, a one-and-done favor. Boy, was I wrong. Within a week of them moving, Emma started showing up at my apartment almost every evening with the kids. She'd ask me to watch them for an hour or two while she ran errands. At first, I said yes, trying to be the nice stepsister. But it quickly became a daily thing. I work from home as a graphic designer, and by the time Emma would drop the kids off, my workday was usually over. But that evening time? That's my sacred space. I use it to unwind, work on personal projects, or actually see my friends. The kids are fine, I guess, but I'm really not a kid person. I genuinely don't know how to entertain them, and being around them always makes me a little anxious. I kept gently reminding Emma that she needed to find a proper babysitter, but she always had an excuse. Just for today, or I'm still getting used to the city. I started to feel a growing unease, like I was being taken for granted. Then came last Friday. I had big plans with my friends. We were celebrating my best friend's promotion, something I'd been looking forward to all week. That morning, I told Emma, explicitly, that I couldn't watch the kids that evening. She said okay, and I actually believed her. But at 6 p.m., just as I was about to walk out the door, there she was, standing on my doorstep with Liam and Ava. Before I could even say a word, she handed me the kids and drove off. I was stunned. I tried calling her, then Jake, but no one answered. My plans? Completely shattered. I was trapped, stuck at home with 2 kids until Emma finally showed up at 9 p.m. I was absolutely furious. She'd messed with my plans before, but this was the first time she'd completely ignored my refusal. The moment she walked in, I confronted her. She acted like it was no big deal, mumbled something about an emergency. When I pressed her, she was vague and evasive. I warned her, my voice shaking with frustration, that this couldn't happen again, that she needed to find a real babysitter. That's when Emma snapped. She started yelling, calling me selfish, saying families help each other out. That was it. I lost it. I told her point blank. We aren't truly family, Emma. I explained that just because our parents married didn't mean we had to be close. We'd barely spoken in years before she moved here, and now she was acting like we were best friends? I told her I was done babysitting, and she shouldn't bring the kids over unless she was invited. Emma left in tears. I felt awful, a pang of guilt hitting me, but beneath it, a deep satisfaction. I had finally set a clear boundary. By the way, if you're still with me and hooked on this roller coaster, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next, trust me. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The very next day, my phone rang. It was my dad, and he was livid. Emma had called him, crying, telling him I'd been nasty to her and the children. My father, without hearing my side, told me I needed to apologize and keep babysitting. This is what families do for each other, he said. I tried to explain everything. How Emma had taken advantage, ruined my plans, disrespected my time and boundaries. But he wasn't listening. He just kept insisting I be more understanding and helpful. Then he said something that cut me to the bone. He called me selfish. Expressed his disappointment in the person I'd become. He told me that Linda and Emma were my family now, and I needed to accept it, even hinting that I was still holding a grudge from his marriage to Linda, all those years ago. I was in shock. I pushed back, telling him they were his family, not mine, and I was an adult capable of making my own decisions. I had my own life, my own responsibilities, and I couldn't just drop everything to be Emma's on-call babysitter. That led to a monumental fight. My dad, my own father, threatened to cut me off financially if I didn't apologize to Emma and resume babysitting. I was hurt, absolutely enraged. I told him I was self-sufficient, I didn't need his money. And if he was willing to cut me off over this, maybe we weren't as close as I'd always believed. He ended the call by hanging up on me. Since then, Linda and other family members have messaged me, accusing me of being unfair. They said I should be more empathetic to Emma, a young mom in a new city. Some of my aunts even called, claiming I was tearing the family apart. Emma hasn't contacted me directly, but she's been posting on social media passive-aggressive quotes about how families should always be there for one another, and blood doesn't determine family. It felt like a public guilt trip. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I really in the wrong here? I didn't think it was fair for Emma to expect me to be a free babysitter, and I certainly didn't think my father should threaten me over it. But part of me started to wonder if I'd gone too far, saying Emma and Linda weren't my real family. A wave of guilt washed over me. Maybe I could have been more patient, tried harder to connect when we were younger. But then another wave of anger and resentment would crash over me. My thoughts, my boundaries felt completely disrespected. My freedom has always been so important to me. After my parents' divorce, I learned to rely on myself. I worked hard, got a scholarship, built a career. I wasn't used to people relying on me like this, and I wasn't sure I wanted that kind of responsibility. But then I'd think about Liam and Ava. They're innocent in all of this, and I genuinely care about them. I didn't want them to feel rejected. But was it good for them to have an aunt who resented watching them? My friends were split. Some thought I was being too harsh, that I should try to make amends. Others said I was absolutely right to set boundaries. I just didn't know what to do. Should I apologize? Or stand my ground? This whole thing had spiraled out of control. I didn't want to lose my dad, but I refused to be taken advantage of. It made me question everything. Was I really as selfish as my dad claimed? Was I harboring bitterness about his remarriage? I even found myself thinking about my own mother, who moved across the country after the divorce. We barely spoke, but I wondered what she would say. I was at a complete loss, feeling like no matter what I did, someone would be upset. I just wanted to do the right thing, but I couldn't see what that was anymore. It's been almost 2 weeks since all of that, and things have only gotten more complicated. First, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who responded to my last message and offered advice. It really helped me see things clearer. After reading your comments, I decided to stand my ground. No apology to Emma, no more babysitting. Of course, this only deepened the cracks in our family. My dad stopped talking to me completely. Emma continued her passive-aggressive social media posts about false family and being there for your nieces and nephews. The silence from my father was especially brutal. We used to talk at least once a week. Now nothing. I tried to tell myself it was for the best, that I was finally setting healthy limits, but it still hurt like hell. My stepmother, Linda, did try to mediate. She called me several times, trying to get me to reconcile, saying she understood my perspective, but that family means compromise. I appreciated her effort, but it still felt like my feelings were being dismissed. I dove into my work, taking on extra freelance projects just to distract myself. I started going to the gym more, even picked up painting. It was soothing to create something beautiful amidst all the chaos. But then, something completely unexpected happened last week. It changed everything. I was at a local coffee shop working on a project when I heard a familiar voice. It was Jake, Emma's husband. He was sitting at a table with a woman I didn't recognize. At first, I assumed it was a work colleague, but then I watched him reach across the table and take her hand. They were talking quietly, looking at each other in a way that screamed this was more than just a friendly meeting. My heart pounded. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Jake was supposed to be at work, not on what looked like a secret rendezvous. I sat there, frozen, unsure what to do. Should I confront him? Take a picture? In the end, I did neither. I quietly gathered my things and slipped out. I went home, my mind reeling. I hadn't confronted Jake, but now I had this explosive secret. Should I tell Emma? Our relationship was already so fragile. Accusing her husband of cheating might just destroy it completely. I decided to sit on the information for a day, trying to figure out what to do. The next evening, Emma called. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was another attempt to guilt me. But something told me to pick up. Emma was in tears, asking if she could come over. I consented, thinking, hoping, she'd somehow found out about Jake. When she arrived, she was a wreck. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she hadn't slept in days. But it wasn't about Jake at all. Emma confessed. She admitted she'd lied about running errands when she'd left the kids with me. She was actually seeing a therapist for severe postpartum depression and anxiety. She broke down, telling me how much she'd struggled since Ava's birth, feeling overwhelmed and completely inadequate as a mother. She hadn't told anyone in the family because she felt so much shame, so terrified of being judged. She was leaving the kids with me so she could attend her therapy appointments. I was stunned. A whirlwind of emotions hit me. Pity for Emma's pain, anger that she had deceived me and taken advantage of my kindness, and then a crushing regret for how harshly I had judged her. I told her that while I understood she was going through an incredibly difficult time, lying and dumping her children on me without notice was absolutely unacceptable. We talked for hours. Emma apologized profusely, not just for her behavior, but for not being honest about her struggles. She promised to hire a proper babysitter for her sessions, I told her that while I couldn't be a regular babysitter, I'd be happy to help out on occasion, if she gave me advance notice. As we spoke, I started to see Emma in a completely new light. I realized that despite her seemingly perfect life, she was struggling, just like everyone else. It made me reflect on how little I truly understood about her, and how quickly I'd jumped to conclusions. Emma also shared her feelings of loneliness after moving to the city. She said she'd been so excited to be closer to me, hoping we could finally build that sisterly bond we never had. She admitted she'd pushed too hard, too fast, and she apologized for not respecting my boundaries. Then it was my turn. I opened up, telling her how excluded I'd felt after Dad remarried, how hard it was to fit into this new family dynamic. We talked about our childhoods, sharing memories and perspectives we'd never discussed before. We were finally truly connecting. Just as we started to mend our relationship, I was faced with a choice. Do I tell Emma about Jake? I debated, but in the end, I knew I had to be honest. I gently told her what I'd seen at the coffee shop. Emma's reaction wasn't what I expected. She didn't seem astonished or outraged. Instead, she became incredibly quiet, and then she simply said, "I know about Jake's meetings." It turns out, the woman Jake was meeting was his half-sister. Jake had been adopted as a baby and had only recently discovered his biological family. He'd been meeting his half-sister in secret because he wasn't ready to tell Emma or the rest of the family. He was terrified of how it might impact their relationships, especially with his adoptive parents. I was flooded with relief that Jake wasn't cheating, but also deeply frustrated by the sheer amount of secrecy in our family. I told Emma that all of this, her struggles, her deceit, Jake's secret meetings, could have been avoided if everyone had just been honest from the start. Emma agreed, promising to talk to Jake about being more open and, importantly, pledging to be more open with me in the future. We ended the evening feeling more hopeful than we had in weeks. The next day, I called my father. I told him about Emma's postpartum depression, how we'd talked, and how we were working things out. I also firmly reiterated that while I was willing to have a relationship with Emma and occasionally help with the kids, my boundaries needed to be respected. To my absolute amazement, my father was understanding. He apologized for his reaction, admitting he'd put too much pressure on me. We promised to improve our communication and respect each other's boundaries. We also talked about the past, about how his remarriage had affected me and how we'd grown apart. It was a challenging conversation, but it felt like we were finally addressing issues we'd ignored for far too long. Things had calmed down, but I still felt like I was walking on eggshells. There were so many unspoken concerns, so many hidden secrets in our family. I was relieved Emma and I had sorted things out, but I had a nagging feeling that more trouble was brewing. I was trying to stay positive, but I was also bracing myself. This whole experience had made me realize how little I truly knew about my own family. It made me wonder what other mysteries lay beneath the surface. For the time being, I was focused on gradually restoring my connections with Emma and my father. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments of tension, but it felt like we were finally moving in the right direction. I was discovering that family connections are complicated, and that communication and honesty are absolutely essential. I was also trying to find that crucial balance between being present for my family and preserving my own boundaries. It was a work in progress, but I was hopeful that we could be family without compromising our distinct wants and identities. It's been about a month since my last report, and I wish I could tell you things have improved. But they haven't. In fact, they've gotten so much worse. Remember how I felt like more drama was about to unfold? Well, I was right, but I could never have predicted what happened next. Last week, Emma called me frantic. She was in tears, practically unintelligible. When I finally calmed her down, she dropped a bombshell that stole the air from my lungs. Jake hasn't just been meeting his half-sister. He's been having an affair with her. Emma had grown suspicious of his frequent meetings and decided to follow him one day. She found him with a woman, not at a coffee shop, but at a hotel. She confronted him, and he confessed everything. He tried to excuse it, claiming he felt a connection with his half-sister that he'd never had before. But Emma, understandably, was appalled and completely devastated. I was in shock. A wave of guilt washed over me for not pressing harder when I first saw Jake with a woman. I tried to console Emma over the phone, but she was inconsolable. She said she was leaving Jake and asked if she and the kids could stay with me for a bit. Despite all our past disagreements, there was no way I could turn her away. Not now. I agreed to let them stay. Emma and the kids moved in with me the next day. It's been a tough transition. My apartment isn't exactly designed for two young children, and Emma is still a raw nerve, alternating between tears and aggressive outbursts. I'm trying my absolute best to be supportive, but it's taking its toll on me. To make matters worse, Jake has been hounding Emma with endless calls and messages. He's even shown up at my apartment several times, causing scenes in the hallway. I had to threaten to call the police to get him to leave. It's been distressing for everyone, especially the children, who don't understand what's going on. Then, amidst all this mayhem, another explosive secret detonated. My father called me, sounding anxious. He said he needed to tell me something important and asked if he could come over. When he arrived, he dropped a bombshell that shocked me to my core. It turns out Jake's half-sister is also my half-sister. My father confessed to having a brief romance with Jake's biological mother years ago, long before he ever met Linda. This woman gave birth to a daughter, the very same woman Jake has been having an affair with. I was stunned into silence. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father had held this secret for nearly 30 years. He said he only found out recently when Jake's half-sister took a DNA test, and it matched some of our family members. My father got in touch with her and learned the horrifying truth. I felt as if my entire universe was crumbling. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. I was furious with my father for keeping such a monumental secret, angry at Jake for this unbelievable betrayal, and angry at myself for failing to anticipate any of this. I haven't told Emma about this latest revelation yet. She's already coping with so much, and I'm terrified this might just push her over the brink. But I know deep down, I'm going to have to tell her someday. The past several days have been a blur. I've been trying to keep things as normal as possible for the kids, while simultaneously supporting Emma and grappling with my own mind-bending thoughts about this new sister. I've taken some time off work, trying to deal with everything, but I'm not sure how long I can keep this up. I'm at a complete loss. My apartment, which had become a refuge for my sister and her children, a safe haven from her cheating husband, now feels like the epicenter of a decades-long family scandal. I'm trying to keep everything together, but I feel like I'm drowning in secrets and lies. I'm not sure how our family will ever heal from this. The trust is shattered, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired. I'm seriously considering therapy to deal with all of this, but for the time being, I'm just taking it day by day. I've tried to reach out to some friends for help, but it's impossible to explain this scenario without sounding like I'm making it up. How do you tell someone that your brother-in-law is having an affair with your hidden half-sister? It sounds like something from a terrible soap opera. I'm also so concerned about the long-term ramifications of all this. What will happen to Emma and the children? Will Jake seek custody? And what about my half-sister? Should I try to reach out to her? Do I really want to know her, given the circumstances? It's also made me question my relationship with my father all over again. I'm devastated that he kept this secret for so long, but I understand he was probably terrified and ashamed. Even so, knowing what he did makes it incredibly difficult to look at him the same way. For the time being, my primary focus is on Emma and the children. Despite the volatility, I'm attempting to provide a stable atmosphere for them. It's not easy, but it feels like the right thing to do. I'm also trying to care for myself. I've started journaling to help me process these overwhelming emotions, and I'm making an effort to do something I enjoy every day, even if it's just reading a book or going for a walk. I know I'll have to make some incredibly important decisions shortly about Emma's predicament, my connection with my father, and whether or not to contact my half-sister. But for now, I'm just trying to get through each day. It's been 3 months since my last update, and so much has changed. After the initial shock of these discoveries subsided, we finally had to deal with the aftermath. I eventually told Emma that Jake's affair partner was also our half-sister. She was absolutely devastated all over again, but strangely, it also gave her the closure she needed. She filed for divorce and successfully got a restraining order against Jake. The legal process has been incredibly messy, but Emma is sticking firm, showing a strength I never knew she possessed. Emma and her children stayed with me for about a month before she found a small apartment of her own. She started working part-time at a local bookstore and is slowly, bravely rebuilding her life. This entire harrowing experience has actually brought us incredibly close. I still help her with the kids occasionally, but only on my terms, and she fully respects my boundaries now. We haven't contacted our recently discovered half-sister. We're simply not ready for it yet, and honestly, I'm not sure we ever will be. The circumstances of her existence, and especially her actions with Jake, make it incredibly difficult to even consider having a relationship with her. My relationship with my father remains strained, but we're working on it. I was so angry and hurt by his decades of secrecy. We've had several long, painful discussions about trust, honesty, and the devastating consequences of his past decisions. He's now seeing a therapist to deal with his shame and learn how to regain trust with his family. It's a slow, arduous process, but we are making progress. I've also started seeing a therapist to deal with all of my own emotional baggage. It's been invaluable, helping me process my feelings and set healthy, realistic boundaries. I'm finally learning that it's absolutely okay to prioritize my own mental health and well-being, even when family members are in crisis. One truly unanticipated, wonderful result of all this is that I've reconnected with my mother. After everything came crashing down, I reached out to her, desperate for someone to talk to who wasn't personally entangled in the situation. We've had some truly wonderful, heartfelt discussions, and she's been a constant source of comfort and wisdom throughout this ordeal. We're actively striving to restore our relationship, and it's been incredible to have her back in my life in such a meaningful way. I've also made significant changes in my own life. I decided to take a sabbatical from work and travel. I desperately needed to step away from all the family drama and rediscover myself. I'm actually writing this post from a small cafe in Europe, where I've spent the last month. This distance has given me so much perspective. I've come to understand that while family is undeniably important, it isn't everything. People who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries and will never pressure you to sacrifice your ideals or your well-being. I don't know what the future holds for my family. The lost trust will take a very long time to recover, if it ever fully does. But right now, I'm focusing on myself, on healing and growing. I'm learning to define family on my own terms, and to surround myself with people who bring genuine happiness and respect into my life. Emma and I communicate regularly. She's doing so much better now, focused on her children and her new career. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, but she's managing them with that incredible strength I mentioned. We're even planning a trip with the kids next summer. Something wonderful to look forward to. Jake, as far as I know, has left the city. His affair with our half-sister ended horribly, and he's apparently been attempting to reconcile with his adoptive family. I don't know all the specifics, and honestly, I don't want to. My father and I are progressively restoring our relationship. We talk once a week, and while things haven't returned to normal, they're improving. He's truly trying to be more open and honest, not just with me, but with everyone in the family. This entire event has taught me a great deal about resilience, about forgiveness, and about the absolute value of honesty. It has also taught me that it is never too late to establish boundaries and prioritize your own well-being. Thank you to everyone who has followed my tale and offered advice along the way. Your support has meant more than you realize. If there's one thing I've taken away from this, it's that life can take you by surprise in the most unexpected ways. All we can do is strive to approach each day with honesty, courage, and self-respect. This whole experience really made me rethink what family means. What about you? Have you ever had to redefine family or set major boundaries to protect your own peace? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your perspectives.